Surprise! Who knows this stuff? Who knows this stuff? We didn't when we started RVing 6.5 years ago. Even though we had a travel trailer before, there are so many things that we didn't know about when we first moved into our RV, and we discovered these things. How about you? Maybe you have discovered some things. Stick around and see. These are just kind of crazy. You're not going to believe where our fuse to our chair is. And here's another very common problem that happened to us, but we didn't know what to do about it. Half the electrical went out in our RV. We'll talk about that too. Stick around to the end and listen to the crazy story about why that one is so important to know about. Did you know that CO2 detectors only last 5 years? No worries, right? Well, if you don't pay attention, it says replace by 60 months, and there is a date on here. Okay, I think the date is on the inside of this when we put it in, the manufacturing date, but it doesn't matter. You don't need to know the date because this thing will let you know by beeping, usually in the middle of the night. Ours did, scaring the dog, and it will beep. You can reset it, beep, reset it, beep. Like this goes on over a few days, and after a time you must replace it. So the point here is this lasts 5 years. You'll need to replace it. And did you know smoke detectors only last 10 years? And the new ones are supposed to be better. You don't have to replace batteries. That's one we just replaced. Who knew they had a 10-year lifespan? And there's a date right there. This is 2024. Our RV is a 2013, and this is the original, 2011. They put a 2-year-old smoke detector in our RV. The new one now has 10-year sealed battery, eliminates low battery chirps, 10-year sensors, end of life. This is a smoke and carbon monoxide alarm. This too will provide an audible alarm when it needs to be replaced. Smoke detectors have a lifespan. What's yours? Not your lifespan, but your smoke detector's lifespan. One day we were sitting here and this half of our RV went out. We went to the bathroom and checked the GFI outlet here, which can sometimes be the culprit. Nope, that wasn't it. This side worked, no problem. Our problem was a GFI receptacle flipped here in our bay. Check your bays, check your basements. You just might have a receptacle that is flipped in a weird place. Oh, and there's not a list of these. It's like an Easter egg hunt. Just like fuses. We'll talk about fuses. This chair right here is my office. Busy little place. But it got stuck in recline. And the shop couldn't fix it. So we went on an Easter egg hunt. Where's the fuse? Actually, we emailed our manufacturer and we got a schematic that showed all the electrical systems that you would think would be in your owner's manual, but no, it's not. So you have to order that, and I don't know, I can speak for ours. Fleetwood Rev Group will send you the schematics for your RV. So with the schematics, we went on that Easter egg hunt, and let me show you where that chair's fuse is. It's in the dash, right? Wouldn't you think it's in the dash? Nope, it's not up there in the dash. It's right here. In that scary box, it says battery control center, fuses inside, caution, disconnect cables at batteries before removing cover, stop. And it is way back in this part, and at that time all these were just hanging down here. We have since zip tied them out of the way. So I literally had to put a mirror here to see the fuse, and it just needed to be reset. That's it. So you see those two valves right there? When you get through dumping, make sure they're pushed in. Especially this one. This is your black valve that goes to your black tank. All the nasty stuff goes there. And this is your gray valve that goes to your gray tank, your gray water, which is your shower, sinks, stuff like that. So if you are dumping and maybe you get sidetracked, maybe somebody was talking to you, you might forget to push them back in. And that can lead to a very unpleasant surprise when you start filling them up again. Just check, double check. If you live in an RV, buy curtains sooner rather than later. Get insulated curtains. Dark out curtains work really well. I really liked our shades, but these do not insulate. There is heat that just pours in through there. These block out the heat. They block out the cold. They insulate your RV. Well worth it. And what's really cool, this is just one panel here. Usually the windows are so small you can get away with just buying one set of curtains, and one window on one side gets one panel and the window on the other side gets the other panel. It works perfectly. Not always, but in this room it did. Let me show you. There is the other curtain, the other panel, and now our room is cozy comfy. It's in the middle of the day right now, and here you go. How nice it darkens the room. And while I'm on curtains and insulating properties, I have recently added shears to the plan. I haven't done it with every single one, but I've done it with a few, and I'll show you. So a lot of heat comes in our door window here. So we have a shear there, and we have our curtain. Nice and toasty. Works really well. Up here in the cab area, I sit up here and work hours and hours. So this is my office area up here, and it can get really, really hot. And I'm busy, I'm part of a business, so I'm always working on that, or rough road videos and editing and that sort of thing. So the heat would just pour in here. So here's what I did with our side windows. I added these curtains, and I started with one panel. As you can see, I've added another one, and now I have two. One panel just wasn't enough. This area needed two. And so I just used these little, okay, nobody sees this, but just look. Some of these are the original sliders, but they don't slide so well, but these zip ties work really, really well. So we just put zip ties up there, and I bought all these little clip things right here, and I can slide it open, and there is my shear. So I can look outside. I can also move this back out of the way. I think that is one panel, so I just slide it. It's on a tension rod up there. So all of this is done with tension rods, but there you go. We can see outside. It's like this on the other side too. So there you go. Works so well. And even those little shears do not do a bad job. So here, I know, we kind of like our valances. I know a lot of people take them down, but they also help because the tension rods just fit right up in those valances, and the curtains hang. So we have a nice insulated, either cool RV or warm RV, depending on the weather. And I also got a set of shears for right up here. And this, believe it or not, does a good job of kind of insulating this area. Even though they're shears, it's better than the sun beating down through the window or the cold air coming in. And while I'm on it, not everybody's going to do this, but I like my space closed off. So I bought some shears so I can close this off. I also do teach yoga online. So this closes off so I have, you know, looks like more of a space for yoga. And those are just shears. And that is a piece of bamboo cut from our yard, from the house that we sold when we bought Ruff Road. Here's another cut down on the heat tip. One of the first things we did was replace all of our lights. Ooh, don't look at that one, that's got dust. With LED lights. These lights would get so hot that if you touched them, it would almost burn your hand. You could feel the heat from all of these lights. And as you can see, there's a lot of them. In the bedroom, in the bathroom, we have lights. These LEDs, they last a long time and they're not hot. So that is amazing. Change the lights out to LEDs. If they can be expensive, so maybe do a section at a time. Have some on hand because they will eventually blow, but they last a long time. So worth it. And you can get these pucks off. We struggled with that in the beginning. That's another thing we had to learn. Were on very tight and you just twist them off. We live in Florida, and if you are traveling in the south, even the southeast, you can expect humidity. We're doing pretty good today. My advice about combating humidity in your RV, make sure you have adequate dehumidifiers. The first one we had was not big enough. So now we have one here that is more than enough for the square footage here, but we also have one in our bathroom. So this one does a really good job of keeping the humidity down in here. This thing, I've already had to dump it since we have been back here in Florida. We have 3 of these Eva Dries sprinkled around the RV, and you just plug them in when these crystals, see how that's orange? That's kind of getting dark, but it's a lighter orange when they're ready to go, and when they get dark, then you just plug them in and it recharges them. So right here, see if it's that dark, it's wet. If it's lighter, it's dry. So those have been helpful to keep the humidity down. I'll add that if it's really cold outside and you've got it warm in your RV, you are going to get condensation. Just check your walls and go around and wipe them down if they start to get damp. They will. So some RVs might be more prone to that and some less prone to that, but we have experienced it. It's not a huge problem, but it does happen sometimes. So just pay attention. Go around and feel your walls every now and then. You always want to check for leaks. Mr. D gets so mad at me. He's like, stop looking for things that are wrong. And I'm like, yeah, but I want to catch it before damage is done. So check your walls if it's raining and wipe them down when there's condensation. Do not look at the dog hair. Now everybody's looking at the dog hair or the scratch cabinets. But we have a furnace. It's a propane furnace. And let me tell you, it works delightfully. It will heat up this place in no time. It is amazing. So I have to tell you a story on our first trip out. One of our first trips in freezing cold weather. There is our tank. I forget how many gallons it is. We now have a gauge installed. And I'll tell you about that too when I tell the story of our first trip out. This one was a big surprise because there we were in North Georgia in January. It was actually blowing snow flurries. It was wet, it was damp, it was cold. And we were so excited because we had this awesome furnace and we would just warm this place up. Until 3 days later, when we had no propane. We ran out of propane. Ran out. None. And we were still there. That's when we learned 2 things. 2 things that day. 1, propane burns really, really fast. Now, we're not sure how much propane was in there, but we have since learned that if you're using that furnace, anyone who uses their furnace knows you can blow through some propane. Number 2, our gauge was broke. So we are not really sure how much propane we had when we got it. We had just purchased Ruff Road, and so that's one of the first things that we had fixed. We have a working gauge on there. Don't count on these gauges up in your control panel. So we survived. Obviously, we made it. We're here. We do use electric heaters now, and we use our electric air. Now, the reason why we didn't use the electric air then, we didn't know this either. Here's another surprise. We have a heat pump in our heater, and it will not work if it gets below 30, 40 degrees. So sometimes it has to get below freezing. Sometimes it's even below 40 and it won't work. I'm not even sure why, but sometimes it just doesn't work. So your alternative is electric heaters or some other type of heat source, or use the furnace and burn the propane. Those are the two choices there. Fortunately, we are very seldom where we have to worry about that. We are usually we try to be in moderate weather, but we have been in some sub-freezing temperatures. So the electric heaters work really well. We have two. Usually we use just one. Just one does a great job. Actually, it's right here. You can see it right there. And it actually provides some nice ambiance here. The heater's not on right now because it is delightful here in Florida today. And the last thing I want to share has a funny story that goes with it. Here's the story. We're in Oklahoma. There is a tornado warning. Ranger came to our door, knocked on our door, and said, "Tornado's on the ground. You got to go." And we're like, okay, I'm cooking dinner. I never put on baggy clothes at this time of day, but this time of day I had on the most baggy pants you have to keep hiking up. And we asked, how long do we have? Because our car was in front of us, and just coincidentally, our battery had died in our car. So we hadn't taken care of that yet. We hadn't jumped it and probably needed to replace it. I'm not sure. I don't remember what the scenario was, but our car wouldn't start. So we're thinking we'll have to pack the RV, back up, and we said, how long do we have? And she said, no time. You need to go now. And we're like, well, we don't have a way to go. And she's like, come with me. So right then in that moment, this is a police officer. A canine police officer. Let me paint the picture. So canine police officer with her canine in the back seat. We got our two awesome hounds with us, and we ran out the door. I think I might have grabbed my phone. We grabbed nothing. We went out, got in her vehicle. We went to the shelter and sat around with all the other people. We were banished over here in the dog room, and it was exciting. I was cold because I did not grab a jacket or anything. My pants I was so worried they were just going to fall right off of me because they were like big baggy sweatpants that like I would wear to sleep in it at night. So I'm pulling my pants up and freezing and trying to watch, and then thinking about I don't have anything. We couldn't charge our phones or anything, and I didn't bring water. I didn't bring anything for the dogs. No training treats, so they would settle down around all these other animals. And so we sat there, talked to the people. It was an experience, and then it was time to go. And of course, we didn't have a ride back because the officer wasn't there. The officer dropped us off and booked. So the camp hosts were nice, and they took us back to our RV. And the lesson we learned that day was have a go bag ready to go. And we have heard this since then, and we just didn't know then. It just wasn't something on our radar. So we now have a go bag. It has chargers. The water bottles are always where we can grab them. So we have water bottles right there. We have our jackets where we can grab. We have everything accessible that's important, so we can, bam, go out the door if that ever happens again. And please, I hope it doesn't, because that was very scary. But make yourself a go bag. There's probably all kinds of videos on YouTube about your go bag, but think of anything that you'll need to get through at least an afternoon. At least an afternoon. And your important papers or, all those kind of things. Ours is a backpack. Bam, boom, out the door. We're good. So those are our surprises. I have a question for you. Have you had any surprises along the road? Is there anything that you learned about when you started full-time RVing, or even when you started RVing? Drop in the comments and let us know. We can learn from each other. So until next time, happy travels. Bye. Say goodbye, Luna.